Wi-Fi. If the desktop has Wi-Fi, you can just connect to your home router through Wi-Fi. You don't need to plug in a cable. I have everything hooked up through cables, but then you got to buy the cables and run it through your house. I'm in an old house, so I can drill holes in the floor, but if you're in an apartment or a newer house, you don't want to be drilling a bunch of holes, So that's why it's nice just to use Wi-Fi. So let's see, it usually says Wi-Fi right inside here. So here's one, built-in Wi-Fi. Now you can always add it on. So let's see what this one says. i7 6000 generation, 4 gigahertz speed, 32 gig of RAM, DDR4. That's just the type of RAM. Everything is that now. It's only a 500 gig hard drive, which is fine. That's huge. Built-in Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Windows 11 Pro. For $300, I might buy that one myself. That's a pretty good deal. If this was 1 terabyte, it would be superb. It's a little slow here, right? But it's good enough for $300. That's a pretty good deal. All this stuff, this is a lot to comprehend if you're just getting into this type of thing. There's college courses on PC repair. That would be a good course to take. And then it's also like A plus books. But when you first get started with this stuff, I'd take a course on it. Find a small college, see if they have like a short PC repair course that you can take cheap. Here's the books. A plus, CompTIA A plus, that's the certification test. So this one's A plus course and the Network Plus course. They show you how to set up a network. That's when you have multiple computers all talking to each other. This book here I considered the standard by Scott Mueller. And I know he was putting a new one out every year or two. This one's a 22nd edition. You see, it's going for $27 used. Comes with a DVD of 3 hours of. So don't overlook the older ones, because the older ones will give you a good foundation, and you can get the stuff cheap. If you can get one of his older videos for $10, on eBay or Amazon, I definitely do it. Okay, so that's not really showing us a lot here. When you buy a computer from Amazon, make sure you check the ships from and the sold by. So what am I talking about? Okay, so if we go to Amazon, search desktop, i7, 32 gig RAM. That'll bring us here. And first thing I'm going to do is Windows 11 Pro here. Then I'm going to lower the price. I'm going to say $410. renewed. I'm going to go 1 terabyte hard drive. Intel. SSD. You can go on forever with this. You go Wi-Fi. That's your preference. And then here too, here at the top, make sure you go price low to high. Here's something else, small frame factor. That'll be a small computer. It's like the size of a Kleenex box. Maybe a little bigger, size of a shoebox. Just to give you a funny story, I was teaching a college class at a big college downtown, and the woman that hired me, she brought me into the classroom, and I'm looking around, she's just showing me around, and I said, where's the computers? How am I going to teach a computer class with no computers? And she said, they're right there. They're smaller than a shoebox. They're pretty small. So that's what this SFF means, small frame factor. Which they do everything that we need them to do. They're actually pretty cool. So here, Windows 11, it doesn't say Pro. Intel Core i7 6000, 16 gig RAM, 1 terabyte. So that's not bad for 256. If that said Windows 11 Pro, it would be perfect. Comes with a keyboard and a mouse. So I have a couple of these. They're fine. Oh, make sure they have display ports. That's where you plug in your monitor. You want display ports on both the PC and your monitor. You're probably familiar with the HDMI plug. So HDMI and display plugs look almost the same. So as you can see here, the HDMI is angled on both sides. The display port is flat on one side. And if you're not paying attention, it's real easy to miss that. Let's see if we can find a better picture here. See how the display port is flat on one side? The display port is the newer one. HDMI is the older plug. They're both fine, but what happens is your computer is HDMI, your monitor is DisplayPort. Now you're trying to find a cable that works. That's why I say, if you're just starting out, just buy both of them that have display ports. It makes it a lot easier. You don't have to mess around with all the cables. I have a small video on YouTube that talks about the display port. It's got 1 million views or close to it because people have had so many problems with that plug. See, here's a support display port AC. So here, this one has 2 display ports. I guess if you're going to run 2 monitors. i7 3.8 speed, 16 gig RAM, 1 terabyte hard drive, Wi-Fi, USB 3. It's got USB plugs, and USB 3 is the faster one. You can tell because the plugs are blue. Let's see if that shows us that here. So last I knew, USB 3 plugs were blue. So these aren't blue. Yeah, see here? 2 of the USB plugs are USB 2, and then 2 of them are USB 3. So they're saying 5 and 6. 3. And they aren't blue. This is the first time I've seen this. There's a Type-C plug on the front of the computer. That's the number 6. Oh, here, that picture it created is showing us the quality thing. Here's HDMI picture. It's real clear. And then this would be the better quality picture from a DisplayPort. So why does that matter? You spend the money on a computer with a DisplayPort, and then you buy a monitor with only the HDMI plug. It's not going to be as clear. You know, if both your computer and your monitor have DisplayPort, you'll get the better quality. Now, for our purposes, it's not going to matter much. But since you're just starting, just make sure both of them have DisplayPorts. Okay, so before we quit, I put together this picture, and I don't know if it's going to help much. You know, I think if I drew it while we talked about it, it might help. But since we have it here, let's go over it. This here would be your desktop computer. This black square here. Here's your CPU. That's the main brain. That would be the i7. On top of the CPU, there's a little fan. If that fan plugs up with dust or quits running, your CPU will overheat and fry. It will break. Okay? There's a little watch battery about the size of a nickel on your motherboard. If that battery goes bad, your computer won't start up. You know, when you shut your computer off and then you start it back up, how does it remember what's on your computer? All your settings and stuff like that. Because this watch battery holds the basic startup information on a little chip. Okay, so CPU, watch battery. Your RAM sticks, there's usually 2 of them. We talked about those. A DVD player that's rewritable. Oh, here. And everything plugs into the motherboard. It may not seem that big of a deal, but I had one go bad once. Like, oh man, I gotta install a new motherboard. Everything else works, but for some reason the motherboard shorted out. Okay, and here's your hard drive. That would be the 1 terabyte thing. There's a power supply with a fan. If that fan quits running, the power supply overheats and burns up. Now these are only like 20 bucks. There's more expensive ones for 50 bucks. So there's a plug. You plug it into the back of the power supply, and you plug that into the wall. And then there's like 10, 12 cables or so that come off this that plug everything in. Some plug into the hard drive, some plug into the CD player, some plug into the motherboard. Your keyboard plugs into your computer, USB plug. Don't get the old style, just get a USB. If you buy a computer off Amazon, it comes with a wired mouse. We talked about the wireless mouse. I prefer these things. They're really nice. Seems kind of small, but they really aren't that small. And you just put a little USB thing into the computer, and that's how the two talk back and forth. Okay, on the back of the computer you have USB ports. Then you have a display port. So you have a display port here, and you have a display port here. And that's how you plug your computer into your monitor. And these USB ports, you want as many as possible. Here I'm just showing 4, but as many as possible. If you can get one with 8 or 6, those come in handy. You can plug in it's like a little box. You plug in the cord, and that little box has like 10, 12 USB ports that you can plug everything in. But it's nice if you can get one with like I don't know how many are on the back of mine, but there's a lot. There's like 8 or 6 or something like that. I've never counted them, but I got a lot of USB things plugged into the back. Like the camera here, the microphone here. I got a bunch of external hard drives. They aren't all on, but they're still plugged into the computer. I just pull out the electrical plug, it turns them off. So that's just an overview of what's going on inside your computer. Hard drive, RAM sticks, CPU. So 1 terabyte hard drive, 32 gigs of RAM, i7 CPU, now I have Ethernet cable here because I have everything wired, but these days everything is Wi-Fi. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have the hassle of running wires all over your house. Laptops are great. If you prefer laptops, they're fine. A Chromebook, my buddy has a Chromebook. They're great because they're self-contained. And I don't know if you could actually do a lot of the cybersecurity stuff on them, but if you got a chance to get one cheap, I think he got his for like $100 a couple years ago at Walmart. So I just thought I'd bring that up here. To install apps, everything goes through the Google Store, which is a good thing. They check it for bugs. So I don't see the actual Wireshark app. They have other things here. Like here's a network analyzer. Okay, so we'll call her a day there. See ya.